All right, you're all set, Peter.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee meeting for Tuesday, October 28th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Calling the meeting to order and basically going to do a roll call of everybody here. Doug Rose.
Here.
Jen Carberg.
Here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
Liz Phelps.
Good morning. Here.
Emily Jenkins.
Here.
Hillary Hedges Rayport.
Hello, here.
Okay, chair is here. Staff, Leah Hill
Here, and Sarah Boyce just came too.
and Sarah Boyce.
Did
Okay,
you need me to say like here? Sorry, I'm like,
sure, say you're here even though we can see you're here.
okay, I'm here.
Okay, good.
And Gary Beller is here
Just had to make
as well.
sure. Hey, hey, Gary.
Hey.
Good morning.
Here. Good morning.
Okay, I'm going to read the script. Good morning. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all devices and phones. For items of public comment, after committee members have finished their discussion on an agenda item, the chair will afford members of the public up to 3 minutes to speak. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and any affiliations. To give public comment, you must be recognized by the chair and speak only through the chair. There's to be no crosstalk with others in attendance. To be recognized for making a public comment, use the raise hand feature by clicking on the React tab with the heart above it at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then click on the raise hand button. When you've finished your comment, please click the lower hand button. It's important for me to note that practice isn't required by law to take public comment. We do so because we need your invaluable input. We view public comment as a privilege, so please remain respectful in your comments and do not disparage other speakers or members of this committee. Okay. And we have minutes, correct, Leah?
Yes,
Okay.
August 12th.
Has everyone read the minutes?
I'll move approval.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. Doug moved approval. Jen seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, roll call. Doug Rose,
Aye.
Jen Carberg,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
Emily Jenkins,
Aye.
Hillary Hedges Rayport,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Aye.
Gary Beller.
Aye.
Okay.
And Matt
Right.
Fee, aye.
And Matt T, sorry.
That's right.
And then I skipped over public comment. So public comment on anything, any subject that is not on the agenda. And I see we have no members of the public, so we'll go right to item number 5, discussion on developing a protocol for responding to regulatory boards requesting advice on coastal resiliency. Does this assignment make sense to everybody based on what we discussed at the last meeting? I just think that at the last meeting, we were all sort of maybe a little confused, a little befuddled about what we were supposed to do. We sort of, felt our way through the doc to sort of tell the applicant at 92 Washington Street what they should be aware of. Leah has written up a letter that will go to the Concom to advise them. But I just felt like we should be more on it when we do get other requests, and I'm sure we will. So I'm just looking for your ideas on what sort of protocol we should follow when we get another request from the Concom or the ACC or the Planning Board or the Airport Commission or whatever, or one of the departments that wants coastal resilience advice. What do you think we should do? How do you think we should do it? Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks. Yeah, I was thinking about this after our last meeting, and I think a lot of the things that fall under like things we kind of felt like we would say are actually under Concom. And I was trying to think the distinction is that the Conservation Commission deals with the law as it is currently. And our knowledge and the things that we think about are those projection pieces. So I think if we focus on recommendations or just like things we want to make, if anything comes up, like things we want the homeowner to know, that we know from future planning, that's like outside of the Concom purview, because we don't have jurisdiction in that. We obviously aren't regulatory. And so anything we say about that would be sort of in addition to whatever the Concom would say. And we wouldn't want to ever say anything contradictory to the Conservation Commission. And so I think just focusing on that, in addition, like kind of whatever recommendation we're asked to give, start with like, first of all, we support the findings of the Nantucket Conservation Commission because I feel like we support our fellow committees. And then say, like, if there's any additional things, like I think Leah put in there. I'm sorry, I can't look at I have the multiple screens. Like that it's within or that the zoning changes may affect this property in the future, kind of like some of the future things that we either see coming down the line or that we know are in different scenario planning or our projections. That's where I think that we should focus. So.
All right, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Liz.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I did actually listen in on the last Concom meeting, and I'm not sure if Tim Brain is here, but he did present the findings, which I thought went really well. And Seth Engelborg, the chair, did mention that, we are an advisory board and we're seen that way. We're not seen as, like giving regulatory advice. That's not our role. That's definitely the role of the Concom. But it is written into the Nantucket wetland regulations that they have to consider the provisions of the CRP, when they're reviewing coastal resource area applications. So, I think our role is also to support that and to make sure that they know and are considering, those protocols of the CRP as well. But I did think that it went really well to have Tim present, our discussion.
Yeah, as each of us who are representatives to the organizations that we're on, and myself to SHAB, and Liz, you to the Land Bank, and Emily to the Conservation Foundation, as well as Jen and Hillary to the Planning Board. Everybody is representing somebody. So Tim did his job, and that's great. So thanks for your thoughts. Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks, Pete. I thought our conversation went pretty well last time. And Leah, I really liked the summary document that you put together of our discussion, but also that, you pulled in the key parts, like referencing from the CRP. And I think, we need a process, as you said, Pete. I definitely think we need a process so we don't veer into, as Sarah said, stepping into regulatory pieces because we're advisory. But I like the kind of what we got to in the end, which was let's look at where this particular property is and what are the things in the CRP that reference it. What do we talk about in those particular areas that we want to draw attention to? And is there anything that jumps out to us, even that we're reinforcing what would be in the Concom regs, like the recommendations to not expand, coverage or areas or put in pools and things that are in these particular flood zones, the things that we can kind of re-encourage, I guess, based on our understanding of, what's coming with coastal resilience and climate change, but base it in that conversation of the CRP. So, as far as process, I think we can bring, an application to us, we get a chance to look at it and where it is, and then call out anything that comes to mind to us. And then if it works, with Leah's scope, or if it's somebody else within our, committee to write up a letter like this that, goes back and makes sure we look at the key pieces and the key projections in the CRP that makes sense. That would be my thought based on kind of how it went this time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Thank you. And to just be able to make our advice site specific based on what's in the CRP. And I'm sure we all know the island pretty well. Most of us do. I see your hand, Doug, and I'm going to go to Gary. So go ahead, Gary.
Thanks, Peter. The only question I have is, as I mentioned last week, I was thrilled that the Conservation Commission turned to us to get our views on this thing. But looking at it now, I'm saying, well, I assume they did that because there might have been some areas of this particular application that they were not so sure about. I would hate to think that the Conservation Commission would say, well, since you're doing that anyway, why don't we give you the same job with respect to all the applications that become for us, because so many of them have so much to do with wetlands and, you know, the coastal resilience issues. So that was my only worry. I assume that the instances in which they will be coming to us will be few rather than many. And if that's the case, then I think it's okay. But I would hate to think that they would turn to us on everything and say, well, you guys are the experts on coastal resilience, so we're going to turn to you on everything. That would be much more than we can handle. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. I'm the opposite of that. I hope they do that, because then we get to interact more with the public and they get to hear what this is all about when they may not know. And as a bonus, the Concom can then learn more from us, and then they may be able to fly on their own when it comes to that stuff. Go ahead, Doug.
Thanks, Peter. I missed the meeting where this was discussed, but I watched it on YouTube, and I actually found the process that this committee went through to kind of find its footing pretty good. I mean, I feel like everyone kind of shared their own lack of certainty and where they should go and how deep they should go. And ultimately, I think you guys landed in a pretty good place. The things that reading the summary that Leah wrote up, I think the things that are most potentially beneficial, not only to Concom in terms of just our advisory role, but also just for insight on the part of the developer and the property owner, is just things that may not be within the purview of Concom, but would be relevant to know as you're developing a new thing. So, like, for instance, when Leah pointed out the bit about how this could potentially be affected by future projects that are now just beginning to get underway, like the Washington Street project and what have you. Those kinds of things are helpful for everybody involved. And again, not in a regulatory fashion, but it's just an advisory fashion. It's just helping to future-proof these kinds of projects. So anyway, I just thought it was very healthy and worthwhile. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Go ahead, Leah.
I just want to answer Gary's or comment on Gary's comment is I believe from how the regulations are written, any structures within the flood zone would be kind of kicked back to CRAC for input on. And then what I'm here, I'm typing as you guys are talking. So I'm just bulleting out. What I'm hearing is for the protocol support findings from the Concom, and then additionally here are CRAC's finding suggestions, potential zoning changes in the future, look at particular property and where does CRP reference it, CRP recommendations and coastal resilience projects in close proximity, refer to the homeowner section in the CRP for best practices, recommendation to expand. So what Jen had said about the expansion of coverage in pools and flood zones, like that's not recommended. Giving the MCFRM projections and what do they mean, and I should have next time. I think I'll add in like the pictures of the different, flood probabilities, and then if they're coming in to replace their bulkhead, to make sure that it's at an aligned height.
And thanks, Leah. And so I envision by the time the next one comes up, that we have just a list of things that we run through. And prior to us discussing it in the packet, Leah would put all of our suggestions, all of our, what we say, things that need to be looked at, our sort of, our cheat sheet or whatever, in our packet, so that we go through those to prepare for that meeting, so that when the person comes in and the Concom rep is there or whoever is there, that we have sort of a script to follow, to answer their questions, a way of, just so it's more streamlined. We know what we're going to be doing. We know the questions that are going to come up. We have answers for you based on what your needs are on your site, because we've talked it through. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, just one thing I want to think about when we're reviewing these or talking about these is access sort of along the beach and North Shore particularly, where there's older structures. And we had I think it was the Coastal Zone Management or DEP who told us that the Concom can require stairs, can require, walkways up and over. And so if and when any of those go to Concom or we have a chance to comment on them, I think we should. That should be just something that's just part of what we do here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And so Leah, just, make that a bullet item that is asking the question of the applicant or of the regulatory or whatever entity, are there access issues? And if yes, then, then we'll have we'll say what we need to say. Go ahead, Leah.
Peter, so what I just read, do you want me to make those into questions? And that would be what the committee uses when they look at the
Correct.
Concom application, and then they make their own suggestions based on that.
Right.
Okay.
And then when we get these applications or these requests, and you're going to write this to be in our packet, you would put the relevant parts of the CRP pages and numbers of items in that sheet specific to that application. So when we get it, we know what to reference. You're telling us, here are your questions, but then, here's the parts of the plan that the committee needs to pay attention to when we're talking to this, to the person or entity that's making the request. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the committee can do that too. Like,
Yeah.
based
yeah.
on where the location is, they can look through the CRP. I think it would be helpful too for the committee to update themselves on like those nuances too.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Do we need to do a vote to have you do that, or you're just going to do it?
Why don't I make this like a draft, and then at the next meeting, you all can read over it and kind of think about it a little bit more. And then if we
Okay.
need to add, if you want to add anything in, and then at that meeting, you can make it finalized.
Okay, sound good, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. All right, so moving on. Present and approve, or did you have the crash response to 92 Washington Street as a bullet item? Did you want us to say anything about this, or people have already said something about it, right, Leah?
I just wanted to put it in the packet and reference it, but there was some comments on it. So I guess if there's any other comments.
So I just had below where it says, according to the Massachusetts coast flood risk model, this property falls within 100% coastal flood exceedance probability as soon as 2030. In other words, there is a 100% chance that this location will get wet with salt water during a coastal storm event. I was thinking that, since we're going to mention 2030, you might say what the estimate is of how high the water would be. So as specific as you can be, so people get it. You're not just going to see a little You're not just gonna see eelgrass on your deck. You might see water coming up to your windows or whatever, some way to make it real for them.
So within the MCFRM, they only do depths for the 1% storm. So that's equivalent to what people say the 100-year storm, although it doesn't occur every 100 years.
Yeah.
So that's the only way I could put in potential depths. So this is like what it's saying with the 100% probability.
Yeah,
That is a storm that happens basically every year. So it's not equivalent. I could
Okay.
say like, during the 1% storm, depths of up to whatever could occur on the property, but it wouldn't be equivalent to like the yearly storm.
okay. And then at the bottom, where you say, CRAC welcomes this type of dialogue at their public meetings. You might say between dialogue and the word at, let's say, and requests from town entities for comments on coastal resilience matters. Something like that. Because we leave it vague, then people may not know who we're asking it from. The people that have something to say, that want to say something, are going to say it, but we want to make sure we sort of get everybody.
So this was just for Concom that Tim
Right.
was
Right.
reading. So you want to add in
Well,
the
I'm just
other
saying,
regulatory bodies?
I'm just saying, if you wrote that line again for the next request or the next entity, include that in.
Okay.
And then when we get a chance to review it at the next meeting, everybody can shoot it down, and that's fine, but those are my suggestions. So, okay, number 6, present and approve the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee's 3rd quarterly report to Select Board 2025 by Leah Hill, Town's Coastal Resilience Coordinator. So the screen is yours.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Hold on, I gotta see. I'm working on 2 screens. Let me see which, okay. Okay, can you all see presenter view?
Yes.
I mean, sorry, not presenter view, public view. Okay, great. So this is from July to September of 2025. The first 2 slides are just updates regarding the 2 structural coastal resilience projects that are underway right now. And a while ago, the select board had asked me to do this, so it's not like officially part of CRAC, but tangentially is. So for the Francis Street Beach Improvement Project, we did some additional coastal modeling to see if underneath that boardwalk structure, if there needs to be like harder infrastructure to reduce flooding. And luckily we don't, so that is great. And then it showed that the adjacent connection, so to the abutters on either side, is very important. And the project actually reduces water velocity during storm events, which is also very beneficial. So when the work group decided which design to move forward with, either the dune swoop or the beach overlook, they both functioned exactly the same. So it was more based on like appearance and feel. And the work group decided to go with the dune swoop, which is this. And so this is getting refined right now. It's not exactly going to look like this, but that curvilinear design will move forward. And we're working through schematic design right now. So really like fine tuning that design and figuring out, how close to the road should it be, and all of that stuff. So the next steps for the project are to continue schematic design, develop a cost analysis, and then an operation and maintenance plan. And that is if all goes well, that project should finish in like late January of 2026. And that's just the 30% phase. So then we need to find funding to move it to 60% design, 90% permitting, et cetera, et cetera. For the Easy Street flood mitigation project, I am working on finalizing the scope for like the next phase. So basically, with that, we'll be increasing outreach and engagement so that the community knows about the project and the need of the project and answers their questions. We're going to be doing a pump station feasibility study as well within the project area or the downtown area. Going to update coastal flood modeling to see are there improved or adverse impacts to property owners on either side or within this project. There's a bunch of different field investigations that need to occur. And then once the select board chooses which design to move forward with, that'll go to 100% design and then permitting. Okay, so this is where we really get into the crack report. Highlights from the quarter, you all had appointment of officers. We proclaimed September as Climate Change Awareness Month again. You discussed and generated the 2025 priority project list and generated a pitch for coastal resilience film. And then I just want to throw in here too, that we got the CZM grant for the Surfside Wastewater Treatment Facility Dune Resilience Project. Under the outreach ideas, so you talked about this for 3 meetings. That's what the dates are in the corner. And you decided that a film about coastal resiliency would be most effective to reach and captivate the community, to be able to highlight the work the town is doing related to coastal resiliency, highlight CRAC as an entity and not just like singular people, and what you are charged with, educate the community on coastal risks and how to mitigate those risks, bolster voter support, and then leave viewers feeling hopeful, but a call to action. You also discussed about having like 3 different film lengths. So one, a longer film for a website, a shorter one for advertisements, and then just like clips for social media. Vince gave a presentation on the Baxter Road alternative access and where that is at right now. And then I gave a presentation about the CRP project statuses. And I'm not going to go through the next 3 slides, but I think 5 slides with the tables, but it's just the project statuses. Oh, and I'm going to have to update that. Don't know why that didn't come through. And that one. Okay, so this is the list of the 2024 prioritizations, and that's where that is at. And then based on that, you created the 2025 prioritization list and created a kind of sub list for the projects that are already in progress from the 2024 one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 projects from 2024 that are already underway for 2025. So within that quarter, I did not hear any like requests or recommendations. But if you remember from July to September, if there were any like particular requests or recommendations that CRAC wanted to make for the select board, then that's what we can put here. I was also thinking, because I know we had this discussion the last time I gave a presentation, that the question came up, well, what about like recommendations that we have today for them? And so because this is a quarterly report and happens, every 3 months or something, I think that we could put in a section here that has like recommendations, current recommendations, if that makes sense. So that we don't lose that and it's more like more current. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And if there's requests and recommendations or any edits or suggestions or, topics that you want me to verbally hit while I present, just let me know.
So Leah, um, do they come to these presentations expecting us to make recommendations to them? Are they maybe wondering why we're not making recommendations or,
I don't think I don't know, Matt can talk more on that, but in my opinion, I don't think they're like expecting you to make requests and recommendations. But this is an opportunity to create that dialogue if there are particular requests and recommendations that you made either during that quarter or if you want to make current recommendations. It's a way to have the select board be up to date about the coastal resilience advisory committee, and see, if there's any potential issues that are arising or, yeah, just stay up to date. Do you want to
so
talk anymore?
maybe it becomes a permanent agenda item so that it stays in our minds. And maybe it goes under new business committees. Maybe it goes under new business and it's always there. And myself or whoever the chairman is can say, are there any requests or recommendations from the committee? Does anybody have anything they want us to talk about for the next meeting that would become or should become a request or recommendation of the select board? So that we're thinking that way, because we are an advisory board. And I know from my experience of being on CHAB that we can just go months and months and months talking about an issue, but not coming up with a recommendation. And we're supposed to be advising them, and we're advising them through you with the quarterly reports. But if I was on the select board, I might, even though we're such a long range planning group, but I would expect maybe some more dialogue. So if it's in our minds, and maybe hasn't been in everyone's minds, that of course we can say, we think that you guys should do this, or we think that you guys should know this, So for instance, 92 Washington Street, that's a good thing for us to say to the select board, hey, we dealt with this and we expect more of them and we're developing that, maybe that goes into your next quarterly report, but the more we talk to them, the better. And then, hey, we need money for this or whatever. So I see Matt's hand. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think it's entirely appropriate for this board to, surface issues that are, sort of current or we're thinking about or concerns that we have, that CRAC has to the select board, and make recommendations on, geez, you should be thinking about this. You should do that. I was going to talk about this under, other business at the end, but I'll do it now. One issue that came up recently was when I was in a meeting for the strategic plan, and all of a sudden it's kind of sinking in. Boy, this is a lot of money, but it won't happen until, quite a ways out. So we can kind of maybe keep it off of capital for a while. That was a bit of what I was hearing. I'm not going to get it exactly right. People know it's important, but hey, maybe we could push it. And so what I kind of spoke back to everybody and said, well, wait a minute. I know it's $200 million. Maybe we should be funding 5 or 10%. So that we're at least getting the planning portion of it done. Like, I know this is a big number, but we don't want to push this off. If it says 2030 or 2050, that doesn't mean we start working on it in 2050. We should be doing the planning work and the coastal resiliency work, et cetera, all way in advance. And so what I pushed, I sort of suggested, and we didn't make any decisions, but I suggested we might want to be breaking up some of our big projects into smaller bites for funding sooner. And so that I just think, so that's a perfect example of going to the select board and saying, we understand there's a collision, a capital collision, and here's another recommendation on a way we may handle this. We don't want to put these off to the last minute because there's still going to be a lot of other expensive stuff competing at that time. So that's an example of where I think our role is to just keep pushing on that topic, pushing on the importance.
Agreed. Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Joanna.
We have discussed many times how we are going to fund these projects. We have written letters to the select board. We've had them come and talk with, we've had people come and talk to us about various mechanisms for how to save the money, and we have gotten zero traction. Right? Zero. So I mean, listening to that, it's like mind-boggling to me. I mean, I've been on this committee for 4.5 years. We have spent a considerable amount of time talking about how we're going to fund these projects. We've come up with ideas. We've advanced the ideas. We've invited people. Again, we have gotten nowhere. Right? We have $1 million a year. That is what is in the budget. Right? We've made suggestions. If there is another way that we can, as a group, influence how we're going to pay for this, like, let's discuss that, because that is one of the reasons why I want to be on this committee, is because I feel like we need to have a long range plan or a solution of how to save money to implement these projects, because that seems to be like the overarching #1 priority. We can sit and meet and talk all we want about the priorities and the order of which they are and various things, but if there is no money to implement any of these things, we get nowhere. I mean, we have got to come up with some sort of compelling argument that says we have to save money for this. And we have not been able to achieve that yet. I mean,
Agreed.
the work is coming, right? I mean, we talk about it every week. The work is coming. Like, you know, Leah's working on 3 or 4 projects. I know that, you know, there are capital requests for this kind of stuff put in, but we have gotten zero progress in terms of convincing anyone on how we're going to fund these things. That's all.
All right. Thanks, Joanna. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with Joanna, but we are moving at the speed of government. This is now, I think Capital Committee kind of like, it didn't really, I think they're starting to take the numbers, et cetera, seriously. I think it's, and it's not necessarily our job to figure out how to pay for it. I think we have to keep pressuring that betterments, et cetera, be examined. And that has kind of been ducked. You know, it's been, and so there's issues like that once that's understood and there's some more of a policy, then I think that there'll be a little more clarity on this. My thought all along has been, let's have 1 or 2 victories. Let's get, you know, the Pulpus Road, you know, Sacagawea Pond. Let's get something funded and get a couple victories. You know, we've got a couple, not that we haven't done things, because we've done a lot of things, but let's get a couple things that are slightly bigger, not monster stuff, but the next level. And then it'll start to get easier, I hope.
And I agree with you, Matt. And I just think that you show people that, you know, this is serious. We do need to raise the road at Natticut. We do need to put proper bridges there. We do need to do the work at Folgers Marsh. And the whole time those projects are going on, there's some sort of sign there that explains the project and references the CRP and references us. And of course, hopefully the news media will do stories about us, but it'll put that into the public's mind as opposed to some abstract thing. We need money to do this thing. I agree. Go ahead, Hillary.
Oh, I was just going to say that one thing we could put in the update is, and ask the select board to do, is advance the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, because that would help. And then as far as, you know, how to get these projects done, it's very hard to get money for enormous projects that are way off in the future. So yeah, I think we have to continue to piggyback, like Peter just said, on the projects that are needed for other reasons, to make sure that they're done with maximum resiliency in mind. And then also to emphasize, or to pursue policies that would make private individuals responsive and responsible for resiliency. And that doesn't cost anything except we got to get the policies written, we've got to advocate for them, and we've got to get them adopted. So maybe we could call out some specific ones. You know, I haven't had any discussions with the planning board about resiliency zoning changes or anything because I've been kind of, I guess, waiting to be asked to do it. I don't know what to do. But that would be another thing we could ask the select board for, is just to support those kinds of policies.
Right, thank you for that. Anybody else on this? Leah?
I think when you're making requests or recommendations, they have to be like pretty specific with a route of not necessarily like how to achieve them, but I've just found in the past when you sort of just make this like blanket statement, they're like, okay, thanks. But it's like, okay, how do they execute it? That will help them hopefully actually take that recommendation and implement it.
Well, having it, you know, under new business, I guess, is the opportunity for all of us, each of us as members of CRAC, to say, this is a recommendation I think we should make. Then we put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Then we hash it out. We refine our recommendation, and we, you know, it won't be just coming from, you know, the appearance of new business on one meeting, and then we do it the next week. We'll obviously refine it and make it what we want it to be. And we have Matt to help us out with words that the select board will respond to, and or language the select board will respond to. So go ahead, Doug.
A pardon in advance for maybe an ill-formed idea. And just listening to the conversation here, I think I do look at the funding challenge somewhat differently, perhaps than Joanna does. And I start with the thought that it will be very difficult to get not just the select board, but the voting population to vote for something as generic as coastal resilience. I think there's a finite appetite to fund something that is as ill-defined as that. On the other hand, I think the way to get funding for any number, all of the 40 CRP recommendations, is to put together really compelling arguments for the merits of each project, right? And so maybe I'm a little bit less panicked than what I'm hearing from Christy and Joanna and others in past conversations. I feel like when the projects are ready to be brought forward, whether it's simply in the design stage or what have you, I think that's when you're going to get traction. You're going to get people's attention when you start talking about the Ames Avenue Bridge, why it's important. Here's what we estimate the total cost to be. And step one is $500,000 to do a design plan. So I just want to make that comment up front, because I think it's a little bit of a different way to think about the funding challenge. I'm not trying to diminish it at all. I know it's a huge challenge for all of us. The other thought, maybe going back to Leah, and maybe not for this update, but maybe a future update, it might be interesting to try to put together a timeline, kind of like what is in the upfront part of the CRP, where you map out on a timeline of not years, but maybe decades, what the major capital expenses are likely to be over the next few decades, and then start parsing out when can we start making traction on this? For instance, when can we begin to make progress on a design? When can we begin to look for grants and those sorts of things, so that people understand we've got lots of projects in various states of progress. Not all of them are happening on the same timeline, but we are filling the bucket with new projects as we can, as there's project management capacity with Leah, and when there's maybe when we're ready to enter into a new stage of discussion around Easy Street or what have you. I hope that's making sense. I feel like I'm babbling a little bit, but that's all I could think of at the moment.
No, Doug, I just think, it's what you're saying is the urgency of getting the project done. Once we get to the point where we need to spend the money, then we reach for the money, and where is it? And then we hopefully compel the public to support us in the select board and the finance committee. And if we haven't spent much of the money that we get every year from town meeting, the $1 million, then we've got that cash to lean on, and then we try and get a grant. And I also agree that it's you know, we can come up with ideas where the money's going to come from, but it's not going to be us that's going to make that decision. We can make a recommendation. You should get the money from there, but the select board or the FinCom can say, no, we're going to do it this way. So we just have to refine what we're saying. We have to be as informed as possible and say, this is what we think you should do and why. And if that comes attached to a project that needs to be done, or a catastrophic storm event or something where everybody can see that we're serious and we know what we're doing and this is what we're recommending, then I think that helps us as well. So go ahead, Joanna.
Well, I think we've taken a couple of different approaches already. We've written some letters, we've recommended some ideas, we didn't get any traction, right? I think I think there's a couple of different forces sort of at play here. One of which is that by the time, and by the way, those recommendations that we wrote in the last letter to the select board, like they never went beyond this group. Like it doesn't go to the finance committee. It doesn't work like that, right? And that's not the way that the finance committee really works. What we need to, if we really want to deliver or drive home the message about the financing, it needs to be in these quarterly reports every single time we submit them. And it needs to be, I think Doug's idea is a good one, which is that if we just look at the next 12 months, how much money do we need to accomplish the projects that we have and where is the funding coming from? Right? Like, can we identify that and what additional funding is needed? And can we look out at the 3-year mark and at the 5-year mark? Because to go beyond that doesn't really make any sense, right? Because the prices are going to change and the priorities are going to change. But we are looking at this through this one lens of coastal resiliency and the projects that are affected. When you get to the capital committee and to the finance committee, there's lots of competing projects that are very expensive. And then it comes to the town meeting to vote on these projects. And we've seen the response to Our Island Home and to the DPW building, right? People didn't vote to fund these projects, right? And so, the next big project is going to be, well, one of the projects this next year is going to be the Harbor Masters building, right? That they need more money for the Harbor Masters building. That is a prime example of a set of buildings and a project that we should be looking at, right? Because it's on the water, it needs to be coastally resilient, and it's taken a long amount of time to get to the finish line, right? So maybe we are taking the wrong approach and looking too far into the future of how to fund the things. And maybe what we should do is shrink back the lens and say, what's in front of us right now? How is it getting funded and what kind of impact can we have? I'm open to any kind of suggestion or opportunity for us to advance something under coastal resiliency that is funded and gets executed, right? Because I agree with what you're saying, Peter, is that if there are examples of things that are successful, then that's the way you pave the road to the next success. I hope that makes some sense.
That makes sense. And, in the example that Matt used, being on the select board, whatever project that was, the strategic plan, at least they know what they know they have to do it. They're just putting off getting the money for it. If we have the specific project, but it's way down the road, then that's a case that we can use to argue we need the money for this. Let's get going on it. And then we just have to keep recommending. And so what I'm saying for item 10, new businesses, are opportunities to, formulate a recommendation. And even if it's the same one every time to the select board, they're going to hear us eventually. Maybe they're going to invite us to a meeting and we're going to speak and we're going to move it along. And I agree with Matt, we are moving at the speed of government, and it's frustrating. We see the things that need to get done, and we want to do them. We want to get the money now and get those processes going, but it doesn't work like that. It's agonizingly slow. So you just have to have patience and keep hammering away. And I appreciate all your thoughts, Joanna, and I can see your passion for sure. So that's why we like having you on the committee and your brain. So go ahead, Gary.
Thanks, Peter. Along with what Joanna and Matt Fee was saying, it would be great if we had some examples of success to move public opinion You know, when I looked at the first two items on this quarterly report that Leah showed us, those two projects are very significant. But when I think about those two projects and where they are, they're not permitted yet. Nothing's going up yet. To the extent that those two permits, those two projects were actually moving where people could actually see we're changing the landscape downtown. They'll say, oh my God, this is really real. The problem that we have, though, is that it takes too long. It takes so long before we can actually get the shovels in the ground to get that stuff going. And therefore, it's hard to convince the public that stuff is really happening. We need to find some successes that show stuff is happening, and you have to continue to help support us as we move forward with the funding requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. I just had a clarifying question for Joanna. When you were saying like the next 12 months, are you saying that for like the capital request that I put in, that should be highlighted and that select board should support those, or what?
I think yes, right? Because I think that the more top of mind you can keep the stuff that you're working on and the cost of it, the more it's going to illustrate the progress that you're making, right? So if you can develop the timeline that's set, and I do think it's probably just 1 to 3 years of and correlate them back to our top 10 priorities and what the budgets for each of these projects are and where the funding comes from, then we're educating the select board every time they look at this document. And with so many other priorities on their plates and so many other things that cost money and take time and space, it kind of, that might be the best service that we can do, right? Is to keep this top of mind for them, and the cost and the impact and the progress that we've made.
Okay.
Thanks, Joanna.
I think that needs to be an agenda item.
Cool. Love it.
Go ahead, Matt.
Joanna, I'm agreeing again. I think, doing a year, a year at a time, or a 3-year vision or something to the select board every quarter, I think would be helpful. Saying this is what this is what we're asking for. We'd like you to recommend this year. This is what we're asking for. I think, keeping that going every year, I think would be positive. It really could help. The other thing is, I'm not sure that we're allowed to, go directly to FinCom or Capcom ourselves, but we could be asking if we are allowed to, we should go. And if we aren't, we should be asking the select board to do that for us, or asking our representatives to do it. And that same view should be going to those committees. These are the things for this year. These are the things that we would highly recommend for this year. I think that has, just beating that drum. The other issue, the finance committees, they are supposed to look at all expenditures of the town inside and outside of town meeting, and make they're supposed to do analysis and make written recommendations to the select board. And it can be before or after the expenditure. So if we do something boneheaded, or the town does something boneheaded, they're charged with doing an analysis of it, writing up, what we did and how we could do it better, and so they have a wide latitude to examine this stuff. And so if they want to tackle this, they can do that. So, so that's the other thing, Joanna. If there's things that you want to, you can ask the committee, the FinCom, to do that. It's well within your purview, which would be helpful too. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Go ahead, Doug.
Another ancillary idea here. There are many projects that are in various stages of progress that are not necessarily top on our radar, but do have coastal resilience relevance. As an example, the DPW facility, which went down in flames the last time it was brought up at ATM because of the price tag and what have you. It is, I think, partially it should be on our list of things to get engaged with, if for no other reason than crack might actually help the DPW folks formulate the rationale for why this is going to be important. You know, if that current facility is going to be compromised by sea level rise, and as much of this landfill will be, I mean, there could be a coastal resilience aspect to the next DPW recommendation. So I guess I'm just suggesting that even though it isn't necessarily considered a crack-led project, I think most of the major capital investments won't be crack-led. They'll be led by the sewer department or DPW or what have you. I just think it would be wise for us to be reminding the select board that coastal resilience touches lots of different functional groups within town government. And we can help build a rationale for why a certain capital investment makes sense for the long term. I hope that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Doug. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. My comment sort of piggybacks on what Doug just said, because I think, you know, I've kind of struggled in the past for like how we as crack lead a project, because we're like making the plans, we're advisory and all that. And so I think making recommendations on funding is really important. And we, like Joanna was saying, we need to constantly remind them. But I think a lot of our projects, as Doug is saying, are either outside of crack, but are like resiliency adjacent or important to those considerations. But also we have a lot of like private ones. And so just because we work in the nonprofit field, or some of us do, some of us are involved in various projects that relate to coastal resiliency. So they might not be crack led, but they are priority projects on the CRP. And so I think it would also be wise to mention those. Not to say like, don't worry town, other organizations are funding this, but more to say like, as part of that, like we are making progress. Some of these projects are being held by, led by community partners, but still, you know, function as part, like they were part of the CRP. So there was like town involvement at some point. And obviously, the town has involvement in many projects, even if it's, not a direct project leadership, but, you know, part of, like not knowledge and funding and interest. I don't know. I'm kind of like being vague because there's lots of different projects. Like I'm thinking of like what NCF is doing with trustees and consultants and work like that. It's not it's not a crack project, but that is a huge, you know, obviously a high priority project in the CRP. So I'm thinking kind of what Joanna was saying with that, like what a year out, what are the projects that are either happening or in planning or we're hoping to get off the ground? And there could be like the ones that are crack led, whatever that means, ones that are like, you know, town led, that are like Leah and or Vince. Then there's like town led that relate to CRP or relate to crack, but aren't our quote unquote ours, like Doug is saying with the DPW, or maybe our island home kind of falls into that too. And then there's things that are like led by community partners, but check off boxes on the CRP. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head, but I feel like it's one way that both shows that there's forward movement in this. Some of these grants that were started are planning grants, but will need implementation money in the future. So that, you know, it's kind of like reminding both the select board and the town as a whole that we're doing work, but it can also be used as that educational tool that we've all been talking about of like, these projects are underway in various stages. Some of them are in the planning phases, some of them are shovel ready, some of them, anyway. So I just think that, you know, maybe it's two different things to be like, here's what we're doing and here's what we need money for. But I think there's a way to kind of highlight all the work that's being done. It touches on crack in some way, if that makes sense.
It does, Sarah. Yep. Thank you. Anybody else on this? Go ahead, Leah.
Okay, so going back to the slide that says requests and recommendations. What do you want to put on for this third quarter? There was a lot going on
The kitchen
in this
sink. No,
discussion.
When do you make your presentation to the select board?
So you guys need to vote to approve it, and then it gets sent to town admin and they decide when it goes on the agenda.
Okay. So we have to decide now what we want to add correct?
Yes, if anything. There has been some reports where there is no request or recommendation. You don't have to put one, so it's just there. If we want to put it one.
Okay, what do you guys want to do after all that? Do we want to add anything? Everyone's smiling, looking up. Not me. No. Okay, Joanna, go ahead.
I think we should put something about the funding. Even if it's small and less than what we can do in the future, I think we have to start somewhere.
And so what are your suggestions then? What are we gonna put?
Let me just think about that for a second. You know, that we recommend that we continue to investigate funding mechanisms for the future projects, right? And that our goal is to keep the importance of securing funding at the top of our list. Maybe something like that, just a statement.
Good start. Sound good, Leah?
Yep.
Okay, Doug.
Just to build on that, Joanna's comment, I just think maybe we should collectively plan before the next quarterly update to introduce some new way of flow charting, if you will, what capital needs look like for the next, I think someone said 12 months. And we'll take it as a baby step. Maybe we do that the next quarter and then we find, well, there's a better way to express it in the following quarter. But I just think there could be homework for us in thinking about it in advance of, yikes, we have to do a quarterly update. What are we going to put in there? You know what I mean? Let's think about it. I'll think about it, and I'll submit something to Leah as a draft for consideration. How's that?
Sounds good.
I like Joanna's suggestion.
Okay. You think you wordsmith something, Leah, that reflects what Joanna said?
Yeah, I literally just typed what Joanna said. So that's the recommendation.
Okay. It's on you, Joanna. And, all right. Well, we got less than an hour and a few more items to go. So we all set on this topic?
Yep, if someone can just make a motion to approve it.
Okay. I'll
So
take a
moved.
motion.
Second.
Okay. Who was that? Who seconded?
Me, Joanna.
Okay. Okay. Roll call vote. Joanna,
Aye.
Doug Rose,
Aye.
Jen Carberg,
Aye.
Hillary Hedges Rayport,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Hi.
Emily Jenkins,
Aye.
Gary Peller.
Peter,
Aye.
Yes.
Emily isn't necessarily a crack member yet. She's
Oh,
not sworn
okay.
in. So
Okay.
she's attending as public, but will be the crack member when Jen steps down.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead. Sarah Boyce.
I already said aye, but aye again.
Okay. Gary Beller,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
Tim Brain. Okay, Tim Brain.
Tim's in the car, so he might not.
Okay. All right, chair votes aye. Okay, so discuss press release of,
Peter, can I just say something about the money one more time?
okay, we already took the vote, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, this is not part of the vote thing. What I want to say is that we are in the time of year, because I think it's just important for people to understand, like right now, you know, and if Christy was here, he could explain the Capcom piece to you, but right now what's happening is Capcom is meeting and reviewing all the requests for the next fiscal year. So they take a gigantic bucket of all of the capital requests from all of the department heads for every single thing, and they go through it, and they have a rating system, and they throw out all the ones that they don't think are merit wise, right, for the immediate future. And then they order and prioritize the ones that are left. And I'm oversimplifying this. And then ultimately Capcom makes a recommendation to the finance committee and to the board of selectmen of which capital projects we're going to take on for the next fiscal year, right? That gets voted on by select board and finance committee. So if there are, and we've talked about this before, and Lee and I have talked about this before, one of the things that I think would be helpful as we go into the next fiscal year is if this group knew what was in what had been put forth for capital requests. I'm sure Leah knows and Jeff knows, but we don't know. So I think it would be great if for the next meeting, we could know what you guys advanced in terms of capital requests. When that's the first part. The second thing that happens is that all of these departments, and Leah's part of the Natural Resources Department, puts together a budget that goes before the FinCom. That doesn't happen until the end of January. So they're in the process of putting together their departmental budgets. If there are items in those budgets that Leah or Jeff or anybody in her area wants support from the FinCom or wants support from this committee, we should also review those, right? So maybe the other thing for Leah to do in addition to the Capcom would be to come back to us and say, here are 3 important things I put in my budget for the next fiscal year. So that again, as members of the Coastal Resiliency Committee, we know what she's advancing. And I think that that would better inform us of the dollars that are available to her and that are already in the budget. I think that would really help us considerably. Does that
I
make
agree,
sense?
I agree, and that can become a recommendation once we know everything, and we can fluently talk about it
Right.
among ourselves to come up with
Correct.
a very
So-
clear recommendation, so.
Right. So if this is the 3rd quarter report that you're sending forward. So the 4th quarter report would include all the activities between September and December. That would be where the budget recommendations go. So if we know these and can discuss these at a future crack meeting, then when she comes to us for the next review, the 4th quarter review, we can say and we can reinforce those budget requests and those capital requests in that report, because it will be before both Capcom and FinCom take votes on any of these things. And so if we can just align our timing to the point where what we say has some impact, I think that would be helpful.
Agreed. Okay. We've got a lot of agenda items for the next meeting. Okay, so discuss and approve press release about CRAC's 2025 priority recommendations and what was accomplished in 2024 to send/share with other committees, boards, commissions. I assume everybody saw it. I wrote most of it, and then and Leah inputted the list. That's the presenter view, but that's okay.
It's Word, so I can update it if anybody has
Okay,
edits.
there's also numbers too, Leah. Okay,
What about what, Peter?
nothing.
Numbers?
I was making it funny. Does anybody have any comments on this or changes, or do we like what it says and we want to move on? Okay, Sarah Boyce.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. This is more just for as a press release for clarification, that the numbers correspond to the numbers in the CRP. I think like we all know that, but it could be confusing for someone looking at it. It's more just a point of clarification of how to present that. Because it's like bullet number and then numbers, and that people, I don't know, I'm a person that would get distracted by that, but otherwise I think this does represent what we talked about. But
Here, Sarah, do you think this would be better or just take away the number?
or maybe before the list, saying like numbers reflect like the I don't know exactly how to say it, but it's like numbers reflect the CRP recommendation number, or because
Okay.
like we're saying this is our priority list, but then there's like the CRP recommendations, and we're so used to this language, throwing it around, but if we're presenting it as a like, hey everybody, this is the list, it might look confusing. So I don't know exactly the best wordsmith way to present it, but
So what are you saying? You're saying we're so deep inside this, we know what it all means when we look at it, but
yeah.
the public wants a number 1, number 2, number 3, number
No,
4.
I'm
No.
not saying that because I'm super against numbering them. I'm saying
Okay.
that there's numbers there that I know reference the CRP recommendations, like 1-10, 1-2, 3-1, etc. But if you're reading this for the first time, if it's like, covered in the current or whatever, obviously it almost doesn't mean anything in this sense, because what we're saying is that the stormwater management plan is really important. But I just mean to say we should have some qualifier that's like numbers reference the specific recommendation in the CRP or something along those lines. Because otherwise I would look at this if I'd never seen anything else from the Coastal Resiliency Committee and look at this and go, 110, okay, so that is like, oh, I guess the 4s are, like I wouldn't know what that meant. I'm just trying to like put it as like my mother reading this, like what would she harp
So what,
on?
I think what Leah is suggesting is taking the number away from the beginning and putting it in parentheses at the end. So that
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, that makes sense.
Right, so that shows that that's where it is, but we don't have a priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Right.
to confuse people. But
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So what you put in parentheses makes sense if you take out the beginning part. Yeah. Thank you.
right, and so, but even though we do that, I'm thinking that a fair number of people are going to look at the list and go, okay, stormwater is at the top. They're going to read it top down and go,
Whatever.
that's up to them. So
Yeah.
so you could, if there's I know Matt has something to say, but I think that's what she should do, Leah, is do the in parentheses, excuse me. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with in parentheses after. The one thing I was going to ask about, I know we've got sand in the harbor, in a sand, what's that called? The sand,
Dredge plan?
what's it?
Is it the dredge plan?
No, the sand movement. I'm forgetting the fancy name for it. We wanted to do an island-wide plan,
Bathymetry.
and we were doing the harbor first.
Sediment
transport
study.
There you
study.
go.
Yeah.
There's the
Sediment
fancy
transport
word I couldn't come up with. No, so sediment plan. So we're working on the harbor. When is the rest of the island?
Oh, well, Vince Murphy, the sustainability coordinator for Natural Resources Department for the town, came and talked to us about that. I know that was a question that somebody asked when he presented that, and that's it's very expensive just doing the harbors. So he's told us and other groups, doing the whole island is cost prohibitive. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's definitely a question for Vince.
Well, my point is, if it's going to be, if we want it happening soon, it should be on here. If it's, a year away, then we can wait. That's all.
Okay.
Peter, I can answer that. I can't find my animated hand.
Go ahead.
But Matt, to answer that question, we've talked about it at a couple meetings, but for the like island-wide transport study, because we're highly dynamic and sandbars are shifting all the time, it's cost beneficial to do it per each project. And so, because for example, when you go and collect the data and a storm comes, all those sandbars shift already. And so the data that you just collected, you can't use now. So for example, for the wastewater treatment facility, we have in that scope to do like that project area sand transport to understand that in that area. Because once you do if you do it island wide, again, like you're basically wasting money because sand shifts so fast.
And also, one of the documents that I gave Vince when he got going on this, is a thing that I know still holds today. It may not hold for the volume, but the direction of the sand, where it's all going, is a report called the Nantucket Shoreline Survey. And it was done in 1979. It looks like this. It's a very, very useful, helpful survey. And of course, all the numbers have changed, but the direction, the flow and everything like that, I'm betting holds true. So there's information out there that exists already that's been done. Something updated would be awesome. But like Leah said, everything shifts a lot and it's also cost. So, but point taken for sure. So anybody else on this with Leah putting the numbers in the front in parentheses at the end of each item? Okay, if there's nothing else from the committee, I'll take a motion to approve
Peter,
this.
can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Where does the committee exactly want this to go? To the media, and then do respective members want to send it to their committees that they represent? I see
Yes,
Joanna nodding. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, please.
And then, I guess this would go in what? This would go in the fourth quarter report, or would you want to send it directly to town administration as well?
This would go in, yes, it would go in the fourth quarter report.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yep. Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve this press release.
So moved.
Moved by Doug Rose. I'll take a second.
Second.
Second from Jen Carberg. Okay, roll call vote. Jen Carberg,
Aye.
Hillary Hedges Rayport,
Aye.
Sarah Boyce,
Hi.
Joanna Roach,
Aye.
Doug Rose,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye. I found the button. Aye.
There he is. Awesome. And chair votes aye. Okay. Create a schedule and coastal resiliency content ideas for social media posts. So this is a continuation of what we started last year. And I'm sure Leah will create a schedule for us, but do we have content ideas just off the tops of our heads?
Peter, can I just
Sure.
clarify a little bit? So again, Coastal Resilience Day to post on NRD social media is Thursdays, but we could post more if needed, like on a Monday or something like that. The idea behind this is, so we do have a communications office, but I have to send them all of the content and all of the pictures and everything, and then they brand it and put it out. So it's me behind the scenes, like trying to find time to update these projects or whatever it may be for them to help push out. So what is helpful last year, what was really helpful was when we created that schedule, the committee created content ideas and individually came up with content to send me, and then I can, take 2 seconds, copy and paste that and put it out. So we have gone through that content, and for the last couple months, I've just sort of been like doing it on a whim. So that's where I need the committee to help out.
Okay. So maybe the best way to do it is to come up with the schedule of posts, and you assign us, pick all the members and assign us our dates and send that to us so we know. So that's our
Uh,
motivation to come up with our content, to get it to you by those dates.
Can I suggest something?
Okay,
Can we discuss like what those content ideas would be so that I can assign those to people so that there's not like people creating content for the same thing?
well, that's kind of what I just said. I
You
was
said
like-
for me you
No,
said for
that's what I
me to assign the dates and then people come up with the
Right,
content.
I just said that, but what I meant when I opened the conversation was, do you guys have ideas of what the content is? So you were kind of saying that we're supposed to come up with the content, and I took that to mean that we come up with the content over the course of the schedule. So, but either way, do we have ideas? Doug?
Yeah, I'm just going back in time to when we did our social media campaign for, it wasn't last year, I think it might have been the year before. And what we started with was, what's our overriding priority? And I think at that time, we kind of aligned around the idea that we could do a series of posts, all of which are derived directly out of the CRP. And it was sort of a CRP education campaign, if you will. I don't know if it was, how effective it was or not. I think people have differing perspectives on that, but at least it established sort of a framework for, who's on first. Once we had a list of CRP related items, we then just divided them up by committee member, and we said, all right, Gary Beller, you get topic 1, 5, 9, and 13, right? That was one way to attack it. I personally gravitate toward the idea of we have so many now projects in flight. I think if and this is more of a burden on Leah than anything else, but if we could do a series of posts, each of which focuses on a project that is currently in progress, and it may be just in the earliest of early stages, but still it's reminding people of the breadth and scope of the CRP and all the work that Leah and NRD and CRAC are helping to advance. I think that would be one idea. Is then now you have a series idea. You've got up to potentially 40 different posts, each of which dwells on a specific project. Just a thought.
What do you think about that, Leah?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I don't have time. Like, that's why I need the committee to help me. And so
Yeah.
maybe what we do is assign projects to everyone, and then we could have like a quick meeting where I could tell you where it stands, and then you create the content for it.
That's what I meant, Leah.
Okay.
So next meeting is December 11th. No, it's canceled. So the next thing is to talk about when we think the next meeting should be, but maybe we should, maybe you should assign projects to us, Leah, before the next meeting. And then we come up with our ideas, and you can assign those projects by email so that before the meeting, we come up with our ideas that then we discuss on an agenda item at the meeting so that they can all get approved. Sound good? Joanna?
Leah, can we get like an analytics report, right? Because before it would be really good for us to know which topics, which got the most engagement, right? Because let's take a look at what is the engagement and what topics got the most views. Your communication person should be able to tell you that.
Peter, can I answer that?
Sure.
Yeah, Joanna, I can look into that. We, at the Natural Resources, we have our own account. So
Okay.
I'll just have to look in to see how you actually do that.
Right. It'll tell you, right? It'll say, this post had so many views, this post got forwarded. I think it would be good for us to know which ones were most effective.
Yeah, you can go on the post and I think it'll be in blue, and on the left somewhere it'll say insight or insights, and they break it all down. If it's a business account, then there are a whole lot more analytics. I think some even break it down into men and women. So and, followers and non-followers. So,
Thank you.
okay, Doug.
Yeah, real quick, I'm just reminding myself, if you look at the third quarter update, there's the list of and the status report of each of the 40 items that are identified, or projects that are identified in the CRP. I'm not suggesting that we'd have to do posts on all 40 because some of them are going to be pretty boring, but there are some that won't be. They'll be very interesting. And I just think that could potentially provide the framework for, okay, now we're going to assign tasks to each of the committee members. Hey, we need you to do a draft paragraph on the status of 1-5. Go. And then come back to Leah with whatever you can. Does that make sense? I'm in problem solving mode at the moment. Sorry.
Okay, you've had a lot of tea or coffee then, huh? Okay, me too. Go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Additionally, I know at some of the meetings, you all have talked about creating content of what you've been working on and what you did like in the previous meeting. And I know that there was a discussion like to try to get the media to cover it. That hasn't happened yet. So maybe this is also a chance to, the Thursday after a meeting, someone recaps what was talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, a summary of the meeting is a good idea. And then put a YouTube link for the meeting in there. So does that sound good to everybody? Leah will pick projects to give to us, and then that'll be between now and the next meeting, and then we'll try and come up with our content and then discuss it at the meeting, and then we'll all agree on it, and then pick a start date and then go. Sound good to everybody? You saying yes, or do you want to talk?
I have a question, comment.
Okay, go ahead.
In addition to, I think that's a great idea for like whatever you need help with, Leah. I think we can diversify and divide. But one question I had too was if there are other content pieces that would be good, like going back to like different organizations working on some projects, like if NCF is posting about their project, is that something that we then also like tag you guys or send to you, or because it has to get approval? Is there a separate thing? Usually you just be like, oh, I'll tag them. They might share it because it's kind of, it's relevant, but how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, you can just tag us.
Okay.
And if you want to collaborate on a post, just give me a heads
Okay.
up.
I think that would be good for everyone to remember too, for other things that are, once again, like crack related, whether it's like, it's like not a town project, but it's something related to resiliency that I could go through natural resources as well. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so discuss moving the November 25 meeting to November 18th. So there is one meeting in November. What do you guys think? Yes?
Yes.
No one wants to meet on Thanksgiving? Okay. I guess we don't need to vote on that, since we all agree. New business and committee and natural resources department reports from Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, Select Board, Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers, and other committee members. We have any reports from anybody? Doug?
Yeah, so the work group for the zoning bylaw update met last Tuesday. Leah, Shannon Holst, and Megan Trudell and myself. And we just discussed, basically we discussed where is Megan in her workflow. And she and Shannon had a pretty meaty conversation about how to prioritize next steps. What we all agreed on, though, is that the ultimate goal of this work group is to make sure we have a ready to go article for spring town meeting that that addresses all of the state and federal mandatory updates to our zoning bylaws. And Leah could tell you more on the details, but I just want to let everybody know we've now actually met for a second time as a work group in how many months has it been? 9 or 10 months. Which I'm focusing on positive, we're making some progress here. I think that what that says though is that the next year's work will focus on the non-mandatory, so the more kind of stretch goals for updating, and we'll have to turn to that once Megan's done her hard work to be prepared for the Springtown meeting. And Lee, if I've overlooked anything, please correct me.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Doug. Any other committee reports or organization reports from members? Okay. Discussion of upcoming meeting dates. We've already dealt with that. Okay. Well, we're going to finish early. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Doug Rose, seconded by Sarah Boyce. Roll call vote. Doug Rose.
Aye.
Jen Carberg.
Aye.
Sarah Boyce.
Aye.
Joanna Roach.
Aye.
Gary Beller.
Aye.
Liz Phelps.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Tim Brain.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you guys for a great discussion. We got a lot done in 90 minutes. I expect to see each and every one of you at the Nantucket Biodiversity Initiative Conference this weekend at the Great Harbor Yacht Club.
Aye.